So this is the lesson plan on Lazy Eights and the Piper Archer. Lazy Eights are similar to S-turns across a road, except you're going to have a pitching involved on this one. So you'll be at your steepest pitch around here. You can think of it as like a skateboarder on a ramp who kind of starts at the bottom, goes up, and then comes back down, bottom, up, and then comes back down. So it's kind of like a wave. The purpose of this maneuver is to kind of develop coordination throughout a range of airspeeds and altitudes with accuracy. So we'll say the purpose is to develop coordination because you're using a lot of different techniques here to remain precise. So let's start with setting up the maneuver. First thing, of course, is your clearing turns and your checklist. So checklist and clearing. Next thing, make sure that you're above 1,500 feet AGL. So 1,500 feet AGL. You also want to go ahead and select a power setting. So that for me is low 23s or 2350. So we'll write 2350 here for power. All right. And then next thing you want to do is select your heading and your reference points. So this is where we're starting on the maneuver. You want to go ahead and select what heading that you're going to be starting on. Go ahead and note that. And then you're going to select a 45-degree point, so that would be about here, a 90-degree point, and a 135-degree. So go ahead and write those out. 45. All right. The next thing you want to use, this is up to you, but I like to use my CDI as a backup. That way I know when I've completed 180 degrees of a turn. So let's say this is our 180. So pretty much you can visualize having a CDI needle right here. That way you know what heading you've started on instead of having to bug it. And that way you can remember it too. And then when you've reached your 180 degree turn, so the tail of your CDI will let you know that you've reached it. Then I like to use my heading bug and select my 90-degree point. So it would kind of look something like this if this was your CDI needle. And then you can bug that 90 degrees to your left. It's also important to pick out visual references. You don't want to just rely on your instruments. These are just backup to make sure that you've double checked that you have reached that point. Only supplementary pretty much. So it's all visual. You're going to be looking outside. So make sure you've selected a very good 45-degree point so we can pretend that that's a tree. This is a pond, and then we have a building kind of over here. So you can pretend those are your reference points for this. Make sure they're easily identifiable too. You don't want to miss it or be difficult to see while you're in the turn. You want something very easy. So once you have that, we have everything set up, our reference points, our altitude, and our power setting. So go ahead and note your heading, which we've done with the CDI. Note the airspeed that you're starting out. It should be between maneuvering speeds, and then select an altitude. So go ahead and bug whatever altitude that you're at so that you know when you've reached it. So just take note of all of that before you start the maneuver. So we're doing all of that down here. So that's our heading, speed, and altitude. All right, so that all should be noted in your head. Next thing, we'll go ahead and talk about how the maneuver is done. So like I said, we've noted all we need to. We're at our heading, and then we're going to go ahead and start a left gradual turn and pitch up. So by doing that, by the time you've reached 45 degrees and you see your first reference point, which is our tree in this case, you should be at approximately 15-degree pitch and a 15-degree bank. So by that point, that's what you should have met. No, there's no jaggedness, no stopping. You're going to keep continuing, but that's just to let you know that that's where you should be at that point. During the time you go to 45 to 90 degrees, you need to slowly add more bank. So we'll say add bank. But you want to slowly decrease pitch. So we'll say decrease pitch. It's important not to make any of these jagged. It's called Lazy 8 for a reason. You want everything to be smooth and coordinated. So by the time you've reached your 90 degree, you see your lake out there in the distance, you should be at a 30-degree bank, approximately 30-degree bank, and a level pitch. Because earlier we started to take out the pitch. So at this point, you're pitching down and you're adding more bank. So by the time you reach 90, you should be slicing through the horizon. So you should be level with the horizon in a 30-degree bank by the time you reach your 90 degree. And you can make sure by noting your bug 90-degree point, just to make sure, just for some situational awareness. And continuously keep moving forward. So we're going to go to our 135-degree point. During this time, you should decrease the bank. So get out of that 30-degree bank very slowly. And you're going to slowly increase pitch down now. Pitch down. So by the time you reach your 135-degree point, your pitch is 10 degrees down, and your bank should be about 15 degrees. All right. So once you've seen your building, check back with your instruments. Make sure you're pitched down about 10 degrees. I call it kiss the 10. So you kind of, as soon as you touch the 10, come right back up. Let the plane's nose kind of come back up very slowly, so that by the time you reach your 180-degree point, you're at a level flight. You're at the same entry heading, when you're 180 degree off your heading, your airspeed is the same and your altitude is the same. So you've ended up back where you've started, just 180 degrees around. So we'll put speed here and altitude. So you're pretty much exactly where you started, just the other way around. And then you're going to go into just a continuous right hand on the other side. So doing this on both sides is one Lazy 8. It's all one thing. You have to make sure you do it on both sides. So let's talk about a couple of common errors. So first one people miss a lot is not clearing the area. Making sure that you do your clearing turns, avoiding any traffic that's in the area. The other thing is not symmetrical. So you want both sides of your Lazy 8 that make one 8 to be symmetrical. I know it doesn't really look like it, but on my paper, but they will be if you do it right. Another thing is bad reference points. So like I said, you want to find very easily identifiable points out in the distance that you're going to use. That way when you come up across them, there it is. It's easily identifiable. Another common error is ineffective planning. So we'll put planning. That's kind of referring to setting up the maneuver. This one takes a bit more time than most. Not planning ahead can be detrimental to your maneuver. So making sure you know heading, airspeed, and altitude. Always remember those. That's why I like to use a CDI, but it's not necessarily you have to, but it just helps with my planning. Let's see, there's altitude gain or loss at each 180 degree point. So put altitude loss or gain. So that just means when you're coming back onto your 180 degree that you're not within standards, which is, so altitude is plus or minus 100. So you're not within 100 feet of your original entry altitude, or gained or lost. Let's see, pitch rapidly falling through the horizon. So pitch falling. This is kind of referencing whenever you're coming down, usually at the 90 degree, you've just kind of let the airplane nosedive instead of gradually getting to where it would slice through the horizon. You don't want really to push down. The airplane wants to fall on its own to get back level. So that's all it takes. We don't need anything diving or rapidly pitching. It's all very smooth and coordinated. Another thing is speed or bank isn't met. Speed or bank not being met. So for that, our speed is plus or minus 10 knots for your each of your 180 degree points. So that just means that by the time you've rolled out on your 180 degree, you should be within 10 degrees of what you started for your entry speed. So it should be roughly the same when you come out of it. Bank also is approximately 30 degrees of bank at your steepest point as well. You don't want to exceed that. There's no need. If you don't make it all the way to 30, it's fine. It's approximate. So don't get hung up on the numbers there. But you want about 30 degrees of bank will make a good maneuver. There's also control roughness. So, like I said, it's a lazy 8. It's supposed to be smooth and coordinated. You don't want anything jagged from where you start and immediately going to your 45 degree. It's not like that. It's supposed to be smooth. And same thing with 90. You don't want to just turn straight to your 90 degree or pitch up 15. You want to make sure that it's all smoothly and slowly going at the same time. Stalling is another common error. This could be because you've set the power too low, and by pitching up, it'll stall the aircraft. You don't have enough power. So that's one thing that you need to take note of is your airspeed. Let's see, there's also steep turning instead of doing lazy 8s instead of climbing. So instead of, you've done the bank, but you're not pitching up. So it's a kind of like focusing on two things at once. So it's a common error is people do steep turns instead of the lazy 8 with a pitch. There's also referencing flight instruments instead of your visual outside reference points. So do flight instruments. So that is not picking, again, good points or using them at all while you're doing the maneuver. You should be looking outside and double checking that you've made it to that point, and then using your instruments kind of as a backup sometimes if you need it. So that's what you've bugged your heading for. You don't want to just rely on it and stare at your instruments inside. You want to make sure that you're looking at your points outside. But that's pretty much it for lazy 8s and the Piper Archer.